Good morning. My name is Joe. My pronouns are he, him. How do you feel about foot washing? Sounds like, if you didn't know what it was in a church context, it sounds like a new trend in health and wellness. A luxurious soak in Thera-intensive alkaline water infused with jojoba oil and avocado oil to intensely moisturize, while hydrating botanicals like distilled myrtle and tea tree oil also purify and prevent odors. I don't know what any of that means, but I found it on goop.com, so you know it must be good. No judgment if fancy foot-centered self-care is your thing. Well, maybe a little judgment, forgive me. I will try to stay in my lane from here on out. I'm talking about foot washing as a religious ritual. Like some of you, I grew up with foot washing as an annual tradition of Holy Week, Maundy Thursday, the night before Good Friday. In my church, we would gather in the church basement, women in one area, men in another, dim lighting and solemn hymns, long rows of chairs, white wash basins, and fluffy towels. When the time came, we would take off our socks and shoes, surreptitiously picking the lint out of our toes. The pastor and deacons would go first, wrapping a towel around their waist, sliding the basin of warm water in front of the first person in the row, kneeling before them. May I wash your feet? Then they would put their partner's feet in the basin, lapping a bit of water over them, maybe making a few perfunctory washing motions, and drying them off, rubbing them with a towel. Then they would both stand up and hug. Then the person whose feet had been washed would take the towel, wrap it around their waist, slide the basin on over to the next person in the row, and kneel before them. Can I wash your feet? And so on, until every person had the chance to wash and to be washed. This was quite a memorable experience as a kid. I was mostly concerned with the practical details. These were very long rows, like 20 people in each row. Same basin and towel, water used all the way down. So when you came in, you had to choose very carefully where you wanted to sit. The water was looking a little suspicious by the end of the row. My mom would make sure that we washed our feet. We pre-washed before we went. I'm sure others did as well. But still, even without a pandemic, that does not sound pleasant. And of course, it was fascinating to see the different kinds of feet and legs. At least on the men's side of the room, the air was filled with this awkward, masculine, embarrassed tension. It was weird, but I liked it. It was formal, but it was close. It was real. These were men that I looked up to. I was sitting beside Nelson Byers. He was the church choir director. He taught my grandparents' Sunday school class. Nelson Byers would kneel in front of me and wash my feet. There was Stan Burkholder. That's my dad's friend, one of the biggest farmers in the county. He let me wash his feet. He didn't seem to mind when I dropped the towel into the basin. Still gave me a hug, said my name when he thanked me. These were formal handshake kind of guys. There they were, touching each other's feet, hugging like they meant it. This was a sensory experience filled with touch and sight and sound and smell. And then we would go upstairs to the church sanctuary to finish the service with communion. So that added taste to complete the sensory quintuplet. These things were a big deal to a little guy, and those memories have stayed with me. In the before COVID times, foot washing on Maundy Thursday has been a regular practice here at Wildwood as well. It's not all that popular, to be honest. It's usually the first thing that we drop from the Holy Week lineup if there's a time crunch. But when we do it, it's full of those same elements, the towels and basins, the awkwardness of not knowing exactly how seriously you're supposed to take the washing element, the genuine humility and gratitude, the warmth of hugs and friendships. Now that I'm the one planning these services, whenever we think about it, when we talk about foot washing as Mennonites in the long Anabaptist tradition, our emphasis is usually on service and humility. We've heard that in the songs we sung already today. From the 1995 Confession of Faith in a Mennonite Perspective. We believe that Jesus Christ calls us to serve one another in love, as he did. Rather than seeking to lord it over others, we are called to follow the example of our Lord, who chose the role of a servant by washing his disciples' feet. That's a solid theological statement. The act of foot washing was a moment of service and sacrifice. Jesus setting aside his status, his dignity, to get his hands dirty at his disciples' feet. It's a major role reversal, the teacher becoming the servant, something the Catholic Church highlights in their practice of foot washing, as priests and bishops and popes wash the feet of ordinary parishioners. And that's the mandate that gives Maundy Thursday its name. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example, that you also should do as I have done to you. A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. Famous words, that last part anyway. And I expect that most of us hear those through that lens of servanthood. Jesus set aside his status to serve his disciples. Jesus laid down his life to serve the world. And this is the example that we are to follow. And that's true. That lens is true. But it's only part of the story. There's more to foot washing than humility and service. If you're willing, I'd like to try something a bit different, an imaginative prayer experience. I've written up what I hope is a modern analog of the foot washing story, and I'm going to read this out for you to follow along as a guided meditation with a bit of a storyline. So there are a couple of pieces that you'll need to fill in for yourself during the reading to make this story more of a personal experience. So before we start, I want you to think of three things. First of all, think of a person that you greatly admire and respect. Somebody that you know, you have a relationship with, someone you look up to. Could be a teacher, a mentor, a boss, that cool aunt or uncle. Someone who you think, if I can be like that person, I'm doing okay. Whoever you're imagining, that person is going to be playing the Jesus role in the story. So if you'd just like to imagine Jesus, whatever that looks like to you, that would be okay as well. Second, you'll need to imagine a favorite activity that you enjoy, something that you can do with a partner or a small group. Maybe board games, golf, bowling, enjoying a music or a movie, cooking, crafting, anything that you like to do with a friend or with a group of friends for an afternoon. In the scene I'll be describing, I'll be imagining that it's an afternoon and evening scene, but if you need to imagine something different for your activity, feel free to let your imagination make those adjustments as we go. And then third, picture a favorite meal. It might be something that's fancy or exotic, might be craft dinner with ketchup. Something that you enjoy, not what you think other people might enjoy for a good dining experience. This is about what you like. So have those three things in mind as we go. There will be a few images on the screen. All of my instructions will be out loud, and if closing your eyes during this helps you to focus, that's good. If you want to look at the images, that's fine too. Whatever helps you and your imagination to picture the scene as we're going. To those of you on Zoom, I would recommend making your surroundings as quiet as possible. Perhaps turn off your camera so that you're not a distraction to others. Maybe turn off your screen if you're going to be distracted by whatever else is popping up on there. This is going to take us about 7 or 8 minutes to go through it. For those of you here at the church, feel free to move around if you need to. Those of you with small children, namely me, you can relax. There will be plenty of traffic noise, and the furnace will kick in at the most inopportune time anyway. Complete silence is always unrealistic expectation, so we can all let go of that. And if you need to get up and move or just want to, that's fine too. So go ahead, relax your body, get into a comfortable position that will allow you to be still if you're able. Take a few deep breaths and let go of those scattered thoughts. Bring your attention to this moment and this story. It begins with an invitation an actual card in the mail invitation from that person that you pictured earlier, the one that you respect and admire. You don't usually correspond in the post on who sends actual mail these days, but this is a good surprise. They're wondering if you'd like to join them for an afternoon of that favorite activity of yours, followed by dinner at their place. The date is for a couple of weeks from now. You gladly save the date and RSVP that you're looking forward to it. As I said, this is someone that you know pretty well already, so this invitation isn't entirely out of the ordinary. There's something special about it. The mailed invitation, the wording on the card, clearly your host is going out of their way here. As you hold the image of your host in your mind, you're wondering, what's this about? Maybe some kind of announcement that they're going to make, big news to share, something that they need from you, special request maybe. The invitation doesn't give any hints. You trust this person. As the day of the event gets closer, you are curious. You're not worried or suspicious. Take a moment to enjoy that sense of delightful anticipation. The day finally arrives. You eagerly get dressed and ready for the afternoon's activity. When you get to your host's place, you're glad to see that, they've invited exactly who you hoped they would. Who is that? Who else are you imagining as your ideal group? A few mutual friends, your significant others if you have them. Maybe it's just you and your host. You can decide. It's just what you would have planned for the afternoon. You spend the afternoon together, doing that thing you enjoy, and it all goes so well. The conversation is flowing easily, there's a lot of laughter and fun, or seriousness and depth. You have more in common than you thought. The connection feels natural, strong, it's mutual. You have that sense that somehow this day is all about you. Your host has gone out of their way to prepare for this and make it special for you. What does that feel like, coming from someone that you look up to? As the day winds down, you head back to your host's home. If there were others in your group, will they continue with you for the rest of the evening? Or maybe you'd prefer that it's just the two of you for dinner. Is your host's home a place that you're familiar with already? Or is it somewhere you haven't been before? Either way, again, your host goes out of their way to make you feel comfortable. Before long, dinner is served. Picture the meal. Is it a formal dinner at a fancy dinner table? Maybe something more casual in the kitchen, or even pizza and beers on the couch. Whatever it is, you like it. Everything is perfect. It's delicious. And it turns out your host did all of this themselves. The cooking, the grocery shopping, the place settings, the full meal deal, all on their own, just for you. Somehow, maybe they asked around beforehand, maybe they already knew from long experience, but they just knew how you like everything. Your food preferences and allergies, your favorite beverage, your exact level of formality and informality. The whole thing is tailored just to your preferences. And again, the dinner conversation flows naturally. No awkward pauses, no stories that you have to pretend interest in. It's just the right mix of joking around and seriousness. It's perfect. As your host goes to get the dessert, you reflect back on the day. It's all so good, not just because everything has been pretty much exactly what you would have chosen, but because clearly your host put in all that effort to make this all about you, to know your interests and preferences, to make it all happen, to make you feel good. When they come back with the dessert, it's another favorite, of course, you just have to ask them about it. Why? Why are you doing all this? It's been such a good day. You've certainly put in a ton of effort to make it that way just for me. Tell me why. Is something going on? Is there something I can do for you? I mean, I appreciate it, but come on, it's not even my birthday. Listen to their response. You're right. I did all of this just for you, and I'm so glad you're enjoying it. There isn't anything going on specifically, but life is short. Just wanted you to feel special. I know that you look up to me. I want you to know that I really respect you as well. Even though you think of me perhaps as somehow above you, I don't see it that way. You're my friend. I like you. I respect the way you are in the world. I see great things ahead for you. I really value our relationship. I appreciate who you are. I'm glad that you're part of my life. I know you can't always see that, so I planned this day to give you an experience of how well I know you and how highly I think of you. That's what this day was about, showing you that I know you and I love you. How does that feel to hear those words? What would you say in response? Would you have any words at all? Whatever you're picturing, it's not awkward. It's comfortable. You know them, they know you. Your host graciously serves dessert. It's delicious, of course. And before long, you're saying your farewells. You're on your way home again. As you go home, as you get ready for bed that night, as you drift off to sleep, you repeat those words from your friend in your head. You're my friend. I respect you and value you. I know you well, and I think highly of you. I love you. Can you receive that? Can you trust it? Take a few moments to let that sink in, and when you're ready, come back into the room. So during supper, Jesus rose from the table, took off his clothes, and wrapped a towel around his waist. He then poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and dry them with the towel that was around his waist. After washing their feet, Jesus put his clothes back on and returned to the table. He said to them, "Do you understand what I have done for you?" This isn't just about service and humility. Foot washing was the task of a servant, yes, but a servant would not have done it like that. This was an act of intimacy, a demonstration of love and friendship, knowing and being known. Richard Rohr says that sacraments are about getting a big truth on a small stage. Big truths have to be pulled into a smaller setting where I see it, I hear it, I struggle with it, I even fight against it, and then it perhaps, hopefully, becomes real. The fullness of God's love for the cosmos, the goodness that created and sustains everything, all of existence, that's too big for most of us to grasp. And so John's gospel, the life of Jesus, brings that big truth puts it on this small stage. Jesus loves me, this I know. And yeah, it's a bit childish and sentimental, but that's where it has to start for all of us. And if we don't grasp that, if we don't in some form accept that we are loved and lovable personally as we are, then we can't ever really move forward on the other paths of life. John's gospel keeps coming back to this. The other gospels in this four-path journey of growth and transformation are about action, movement. There's stuff to be done, people to be helped, storms to be navigated. But John's path is the garden. It's about the seasons of life where intimacy, relationships, the inner journey, paying attention to those is the only task to be done. Receiving the gift, accepting the invitation, having the patience to sit in the garden, to soak it in for a while, to trust God's great big love for the world on the small stage that is you. Alexander Shaya describes it well. John also gives us the opportunity to wrestle with some of our deepest feelings about self-worth, those feelings that can divide us from spiritual development and the richest relationship with God. Can we feel our own difficulty with unworthiness in the poignant imagery of Jesus' final meeting with his disciples? Can we open to its intimacy and sensuality? Can we begin to sense a new set of inner questions? How would we feel if Jesus the Christ, clad only in a towel, were on his knees before us and wanted to wash our feet? Would we be able to receive that extraordinary gift with a whole heart? We cannot be on the journey unless we are able to receive. We must be able to participate in both sides of a relationship, giving and receiving. May God meet us in the wrestling, in the washing, and in the receiving this day. Amen.